Welcome to the Arthur CUSD 305 Unite 305 Community Engagement Process. The intent of this video is to prepare attendees prior to virtual sessions of CES number 2 on Thursday, December 2nd and Sunday, December 5th. This information is also here as a reference for those that are attending in-person sessions and need a refresher, or anyone that cannot attend due to schedule. This video, along with all future videos, is available at www.unite305.com. My name is Damian Schlitt with BLDD Architects, and I'm assisting the district and the community-led team in their work to create a master plan for the facilities in Arthur CUSD 305. Like at CES 1, we have a great presentation for you today. After I quickly review our feedback from CES 1, we also will have Kevin Hyde from Stifel Financial to present information related to school finance, bonding, and property tax impacts. Now, in the interest of time and our desire for you to spend much of the time with your meeting doing group work, I'm going to briefly touch on the results of CES 1. If you're interested in a more in-depth review, all of the results are available on the Unite 305 website. In summary, you can quickly see the preferences of the various scenarios based simply by the number of strengths, in blue, versus weaknesses, in red, on each of the scenarios. Scenarios 0, 2, and 3, which are status quo, and the grade centers, are a bit heavier on weaknesses, whereas Scenario 1, which is best practice upgrades, and Scenario 4, a new middle school, show a much greater frequency of strengths being identified. Weaknesses generally related to costs, items related to transportation, or a lack of enough work occurring at a campus. Strengths related to location of grades, the connection of junior high students, community building, and support for various important programs such as shop, industrial arts, and vocational courses. Now with that, I'm going to pass it over to Kevin Hyde with Stifel Financial to introduce us to what we're referring to as Finance 101.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Hyde. I'm Managing Director at Stifel Nicholas, and we've been asked to assist the district in terms of exploring financing options for its potential project. First of all, we want to talk about how districts can issue bonds under Illinois state law. There's basically two bodies of law that govern how school districts can borrow money. One is the Illinois School Code, and the other is the Local Government Debt Reform Act. Under the Illinois School Code, K-12 districts, such as Arthur, have a debt limit of 13.8% of equalized assessed valuation, or EAV. Again, this is set in statute. Bonds for building purposes, such as the project that you are now exploring, generally do require a referendum in order to be issued. General obligation bonds, or GO bonds, are the most common type of bond that school districts issue, and they are basically repaid from a dedicated tax levy that can only be used to service the debt on those bonds. That levy is limited in length to 20 years. The bonds have to mature within 20 years. And again, once the bonds are paid off, that levy will cease. Alternate revenue bonds, bonds that are secured by other revenue sources than property taxes, such as sales taxes, do not count against the debt limit. Arthur has existing debt that does count against their statutory debt limit. Even though the debt was issued by the former Atwood-Hammond School District, because that district is now part of the assessed valuation of Arthur, it does count against the statutory debt limit. There are currently $1.61 million of bonds outstanding against the Atwood District. And again, those would count against statutory debt limit. In addition to the outstanding general obligation bonds that do count against debt limit, the district also has some alternate revenue bonds that are secured by the county school facility sales tax that are outstanding. These bonds, while outstanding, do not count against the statutory debt limit because the district pays these bonds back out of the county school facility sales tax that it receives every month. So to calculate the district's statutory debt limit, we take a look at their most recent certified EAV. That's for the year 2020, and approximately $243 million, a little bit shy of that. At 13.8%, that produces a statutory debt limit of about $33.5 million. Again, we have to remove the $1.6 million bonds currently outstanding from the Atwood-Hammond district, which gives the district just shy of $32 million of bonding capacity available. Again, using the current 2020 EAV, by all likelihood, the 2021 EAV would be available before the district issues bonds, so this figure will be subject to change based on what the 2021 EAV is determined to be. So we've prepared a couple of estimates here, basically 3 different estimated project cost amounts. Again, these are not tied to any specific project yet. The goal here is only to provide the committee and the folks that are analyzing your needs just some kind of flavor for what kind of a tax rate impact a various size project might amount to. And so again, please remember these are only estimates and they are not tied to any specific projects. So the first estimate we did was for $10 million project. That would produce a tax rate increase of approximately 28 cents per $100 of assessed valuation. So to try to figure out the impact on a homeowner, we've listed various home values here, $100,000, $150,000, and $200,000. The way homes are assessed, it's basically assessed at a third of its market value. And for most homeowners, there is a $6,000 homeowner occupied exemption. So if you're living in your own home and you have a market value of $100,000, a third of that would be $33,333. If you take $6,000 off for the homeowner exemption, then you're left with a taxable value of $27,333. If you divide that by 100, you get 273.33 hundredths, and if you multiply that by 28 cents, you come up with a tax rate increase annually of about $75, or monthly about $6.30 if we were to round it. And again, you can see the same numbers move forward. If you're a $150,000 house, that would be a third of a market value would be $50,000. Less the $6,000 produces a taxable value of $44,000 after the homeowner occupied exemption. And again, that's 440 hundredths times 28 cents is $121 a year, or about $10 a month in terms of tax impact. So if we carry this same analysis forward and we do a $20,000 project, that produces a tax rate increase of about 55 cents per $100 of assessed valuation. And again, so the homeowner that's in the $100,000 house has a taxable value of $27,333. At 55 cents, that's about $150 a year, or about $12.50 a month if we were to look at it on a monthly basis. Again, please remember these are not tied to any specific project. These are only here to give you a framework, a reference point, if you will, for what kind of a tax rate increase you might be looking at. And finally, our third example is for a $30 million project. $30 million, the estimated tax rate increase would be about 83 cents per $100 of assessed valuation. And again, taking that analysis forward, again, that same $100,000 house with a taxable value of $27,333 would have an annual tax increase of about $227 if we rounded it, or roughly $19 a month if we rounded it. And again, these are only estimates, just meant to give you a framework or a reference point for how a bond issue might impact property taxes.
Great. Thanks so much, Kevin. Now I'm going to introduce us to our revised scenarios based on feedback from CES number 1. But before we begin, for newcomers, I wanted to quickly explain a master plan solution and how it's developed. A master plan scenario is a full solution that is comprised of various options. Options are building level solutions with additions, renovations, even retirement. When you decide what to do with various options at each facility, those build a scenario. like this, where building A is remodeled, B has a combination of addition and remodel, and C simply has additions. Tonight, you will see we have 7 scenarios in addition to status quo to review. The first 4 were presented in CES 1 and are introduced tonight with costs. With our 3 new scenarios, we now have 4 groups. These first 2 are based around keeping pre-K through 8th in each of the current elementary communities. This second group, scenarios 2 and 3, are related to grade centers, with Lovington as a 6-8 middle school. The first of our new scenarios, 4B, is an extension of our third group, which was pre-K 5 at the elementary with a new middle school. In 4B, this also includes a new high school. Both new facilities are on unidentified locations, but could be placed on current or new property with varied impacts on overall costs. The last set, purely from CES 1, is the idea of a 6-12 campus. 5A looks at creating this via an addition to the current high school to add the middle school grades of 6 through 8. 5B accomplishes this 6-12 campus by building an entirely new 6-12 facility as a new building on a new site. Now, before I begin to describe these scenarios, a little review of the full scenario layout. At the top of each scenario is its title and defining description: status quo, new, middle school, etc. Next, you can see the name of each campus across the top of the columns. Regardless of grade level served, we will refer to each site as it is currently to avoid any confusion. At the bottom of each column are some basic information related to the option: grade level alignment, existing and additional square footages, as well as a functional performance score. Lastly, at the bottom of the sheet is a colored legend. These relate to things from new construction and additions to retirement or demolition. The first scenario for review is status quo. This keeps grade level alignments the same, but simply does the physical needs work that was described in CES 1. Now, this has a total cost of $19.7 million, but does not result in any increases in the functional performance score for the district, remaining at 64.3. Scenario 1 is referred to as best practice upgrades, and this looks at going a step beyond status quo and not only doing physical needs work, but also looking to implement best practice functional upgrades. This includes not only renovations, but also additions and reorganizations of the buildings to support programs as opportunities for our students. Those functional improvements bring the cost of the overall master plan to $53 million. And you can see the district as a whole moves up from 64.3 functional score up to an 84.6. Scenario 2 is the first of 2 grade center scenarios. In this case, Atwood Hammond is a pre-K 2, Arthur Grade School as a 3-5, and Lovington becomes a middle school. In this scenario, as well as scenario 3, Lovington is selected as the 6-8 mainly due to the flexibility of the site for middle school functions. This scenario comes in at $53.6 million and gets a couple of extra points for functional performance, landing at an 88.0. Scenario 3 is the same as scenario 2, with Arthur as a pre-K 2 and Atwood Hammond as a 3-5. Now, this is a slightly higher cost at $54.4 million, but also gets a little boost in functional performance, getting to an 88.7. Scenario 4A is the first of 2 new middle school scenarios. This looks at turning each of our pre-K 8s into pre-K 5s and building a central 6-8 facility. There's not a site identified for this facility. However, we would be looking at about 10 to 20 acres for that site. This scenario's cost is about $57.1 million and a functional performance score of 88.6. Moving to 4B, this is the second of those 2 middle school scenarios. This is the same as 4A, except rather than spending roughly $16 million to upgrade the high school, the existing high school is retired, and a new high school is built at a cost of approximately $31.2 million. This scenario is not only the highest functional score of 90.9, but also results in the highest cost to implement at $73.8 million. Scenario 5A is the first of two 6-12 campus scenarios. This one is accomplished by adding the middle school 6-8 grades to the existing high school with a total addition of roughly 52,000 square feet. This scenario costs roughly $55 million and results in a functional score of 87.3. And the last scenario for this evening, 5B, this is our second 6-12 campus, and similar to 4B, retires the existing high school and building a new 6-12 facility. This is the second most costly scenario due to the amount of new construction coming in at $72.3 million with a functional score of 89.2. So in summary, of the 7 scenarios, besides status quo, 1 retains pre-K 8, 2 implement grade centers, and 4 construct a single middle school. 2 of those middle school scenarios also include new high school facilities, which can be reflected in the costs. Thank you so much for your time today. Please don't miss out on the opportunity to participate further in CES number 3, occurring on January 12th from 6 to 8 in Arthur Lovington Atwood Hammond High School gym. There are also 2 virtual sessions for that meeting, January 13th at 7 p.m. or January 16th at 3 p.m.